friends. Welcome to the Infertility Club. Today, I am so excited about our special guest, Jenn. Jenn Allen, hi.
Hi, Taylor. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so pleasured and blessed. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. When I was going through infertility, one of my friends invited me to go on a Ragnar running race, and I remember that was like the first time I met Jenn, and you had shared your experience with me of going through infertility and the steps you guys took, and it was just so helpful hearing your story. It gave me so much hope. And I'm just so grateful you're willing to share your story and be on here because I know there's so many people that will be able to hear your experiences and be able to get ideas and hope from it. And so thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure and honor. Like this, thank you for having me. Like honestly, for you to ask me to do this is a complete honor. I want to get my story out there. And like I told you, I was going to write a book afterwards and I never got that point because I was all busy. But I'm so happy to share my story with everyone. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. So, Jenn, tell us a little bit about your journey to parenthood. What has that looked like for you?
Okay, I got married in 1999. We're coming up on 25 years. Yes. And
Woohoo!
woohoo, yay. Honestly, it was it I'm gonna cry again, but it was
Oh,
horrible and terrible, but at the same thing, a wonderful blessing, all in disguise. So my husband and I, like I said, we got married in 99 and I was on birth control because who doesn't get married and gets on birth control, right? And
mhm.
anyway, so I was on it and my husband was like, "You're mean. You're kind of." I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm wonderful."
Yeah,
He's like, "No,
yeah.
you're kind of." And I was like, "Okay, what is happening to me?" So I went to the doctor
Yeah.
and I said, "I can't be on birth control because I'm me and I want to be the
Mhm.
nice Penny, the nice sweet me. I need to be done with this." And he
Yeah.
legit was like, no. Not, sorry, my husband, not the doctor, but the
Yeah,
doctor
yeah,
was like, "Well, okay, well, let's figure something else out." And he's like,
yeah.
"We'll take you off of it. That's fine. That works." And he goes, "Do you want to try something else?" And I said, "Abs- Actually, no. We'll just do
Mhm.
I mean, at the time in our life, it was like if we were to get pregnant, it wasn't the end of the world. It would have been wonderful.
Mhm.
Absolutely
Yeah.
great. But at the time, it was just kind of, we were kind of in that, like I said, we had just gotten married. We were like, okay, whatever, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And sorry, I told you I'd get emotional. But my doctor
Yeah.
said, "Okay, fine, we'll take you off birth control." And so I was like, "Okay, fine." So I didn't do anything. And then after that happened, but oh, by the way, I didn't preface that I had PCOS. And I didn't know that until probably about the time we got married. Because it wasn't,
Okay.
I mean, when I was in high school, it was like all my friends were like clockwork having their periods. And
Mhm.
you're like, I was 13 when I started. And then it was like my friends were all having their periods and they're like, "When's yours?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know." And they were all like
Mhm.
envious and, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky." And at the time I thought, "Yeah, this is wonderful. You're right."
Uh-huh.
You know? And so, anyways, but going back to the whole infertility thing, like my doctor was like, "Okay, I'll take you off birth control, but we'll just see what happens from there." And I said, "Great, that's wonderful." So obviously,
Mhm.
we were like, "Should we use like condoms or whatever?" And we kind of both
Totally.
were
Yeah.
just like, "Who cares?" I mean, I was 21. I know that's young. He was 25. My husband was 25. And so he had graduated college and, he was getting into his career. And we kind of both were just like, well, who cares at this point? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
And then, anyways, looking back though, it was a blessing in disguise because I never had a period after I went off the birth control.
Wow.
So, yeah, which is crazy. And so at that point, I started working with my OBGYN more and more.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I was going in and they were like, every month, they were testing me to see when I should have ovulated, but I never did. And
Okay.
like taking blood work and all that kind of stuff. And I was like,
Mhm.
what is going on? And finally they were like, okay, we don't think you're ovulating, so we're going to put you on Clomid. I was like,
Okay.
all right. I mean, mind you, this was what, in the early 2000s ish. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I have no idea what this drug is, but I'll do it. That's fine.
Mhm.
Anyways, and so they would put me on because I wasn't having a period. And with
Mhm.
Clomid, you have to have a period for it to work. So they were
Oh, I
in,
didn't realize that.
yeah, I can't remember the medication, and anyone could Google and figure it out, but
Yeah.
I can't remember the medication they were giving me to induce a period. And then
Okay.
they were inducing a period, but also giving me Clomid at a certain point in the month that I would take
Okay.
orally. And then
Mhm.
they would take my blood work to see if the Clomid worked.
Wow.
And this, every time they would do the blood work, every time they came back and said, oh, sorry, by the way, you didn't ovulate. I'm like, okay, what now?
Wow.
And they're like, well, we're gonna up your dose of Clomid.
Mhm.
And I'm so naive just because I just wanted a baby so bad. And I was, even though we
Yeah.
weren't really trying for a baby at the time, but I was like,
Mhm.
this is my, this is what has to happen for us to have a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to have a period so that I'll ovulate. And when we want to have a child, we can go through that process. Anyways,
Totally.
so,
So do
oh,
you
yeah.
remember how long you guys did that for?
Oh, 9 months, honey. 9 months.
Wow.
Nine
That's a lot.
months. So it was, I'm just going to say, I'm sorry to say this word, but it was absolute hell for 9 months
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
they were giving me all these drugs. They were inducing a period, not only that, but also giving me medication for Clomid to make me ovulate. And never once did my
Mhm.
blood work show up that, oh yay, it happened. And all the while,
Wow.
obviously, they were like, well, keep having sex, do you,
Yeah.
hopefully it will
Yeah.
happen. And like I said, we weren't
Yeah.
even in the moment of trying, but we are also like,
Mhm.
well, if this is the least we can do monetarily wise, let's do it.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
it was like our first attempt of, you know what? Maybe we don't want a child now, but if this is where we're going to get to, or
Mhm.
where it's our first experience and the cheapest way, I
Mhm.
hate to say that because a child is worth $1 million. I hate to say that, but you know
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That, yeah, for us
It
though, it
is.
was
Yeah.
like we are newly married and we are like, you know what?
Mhm.
We'll do anything to have a child. We didn't even know
Yeah.
that we were going to struggle. And so we are like, okay, fine. We'll do all this and
Yeah.
see what happens. And
Yeah.
our doctors were like, yeah, this is just the start. You have no, like, I think in their back heads, they were like, oh, she has no idea. Like, you know, I don't
Yeah.
really feel like they were being 100% honest with us that
Mhm.
They knew,
Of the
but
circumstances.
this
Yeah.
this guy and gal are gonna struggle. Guess what?
Yeah.
And bless their hearts. I
Mhm.
mean, they can only do what they can do. But at the time, we thought, great, we'll do anything. This is wonderful. Our
Mhm.
insurance
Yeah.
covers it. We'll do this. And I mean, 9 months of Clomid. Are you kidding me? I have friends
Yeah.
that
That's
have
a lot
taken
on the body.
Clomid for 1 month and had twins
Mhm.
like that.
Wow. That's
Yeah. So I'm
wild.
like,
Yeah.
what was happening with our situation? So
Mhm.
fast forward, okay, after 9 months of the Clomid and inducing periods and all that, they finally, like I said, I'm still at my OBGYN, and they finally said, sweetie, we're sorry, but you need to go to an endocrinologist. Like, you need to go to a specialist
Mm.
because we can't help you anymore. Like, we've done what
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
at our level. And so
Mhm.
they recommended me to the University of Utah and
Okay.
oh gosh, I wish I would have written this down. No, it was not Dr. Smith. It'll come to me. Give me a hot minute, but I'll let y'all know. But um, anyways, finally we went to him, and he, did all my blood work and tests, and he was like, "Oh, girl, you have PCOS." So he's the first one that diagnosed me with PCOS, and he
Okay.
said, "Sweetie, I'm sorry, but you can't even do, what's it called?
IUI.
Thank you. Yes, yeah." Like, he's like, that won't even work for you because you're not ovulating. So you can't
Mm.
do the injections because we don't know when you're going to ovulate or when you're going to,
Mhm.
be ready for
Yeah.
this hormone to, do all
Yeah,
that.
totally.
So I was like, okay. And when they told me that, I was absolutely devastated. I mean, I think at the time I maybe have
Oh.
been, oh gosh, like in my late 20s. And at the time,
Okay.
I was like, well, first of all, we can't afford it. Second of all,
Mhm.
what? Like, in the
Yeah.
moment, we were still not 100% like ready to have a child, but we just went through
Mhm.
all these steps going, this is what they're telling us to do. So, okay, we're going through the moments and the movements, but we
Yeah.
still weren't
Of what's
accepting that
next.
this is like our timeline, you know?
Mhm.
But when
Yeah.
he told us that, we were both just like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like,
Mm.
all we
Yeah.
saw in our
Yeah.
eyeballs was at least $10,000 to $12,000. And we didn't have
Mhm.
that. I mean, we were just married a couple of years. So
Yeah.
that came to that. And so at that point, I was devastated. But my husband, bless his heart, was like, you know what? Guess what? And I was like, what, babe? What? He's like, who cares? I'm like, what do you mean, who
Oh.
cares? Like, what are you talking about? He was like, we can't control this. This is God's will.
Mhm.
We can't control it. He's like, let's just enjoy each other's company and have fun. And I all of a sudden was like,
Oh.
okay, great. I'm on board with that.
Mhm.
That's wonderful. And
Yeah.
luckily, he was with the company at the time that, he traveled a ton and he'd take me with
Mhm.
him. And so we
Oh, that's
traveled, and
fun.
I just kind of like put the whole infertility thing in the back door and just said, you know what? I can't control it. There's nothing I can do.
Mhm.
So I might as well just enjoy my life and have a good time.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, so we traveled. His company would pay for me to go with him and travel, and it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But then
Oh,
after a
I love
while,
that.
obviously that rush or that high like came to an end where
Mhm.
I was like, okay, now I really want a baby. What do we do?
Yeah.
And at that point, we kind of were like so funny. So my husband gets an American Express card that has like 18, it has, sorry, 18 months, zero interest. And we're like,
Okay.
the baby on it. Let's try it. Why not? So,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
accepted it and we applied and they accepted it. So we were in Utah County and we go down to Dr. Andrews and gosh, hold on, that'll come to me too. Anyways, Dr. Andrews, that was the main one. And we go down and he's actually not even like an infertility specialist, but
Okay.
he was like, you know what? I see the need for all this infertility that's happening in our world in the
Mhm.
2000s and was like, I want to help these women have babies. And I
Mhm.
had several friends recommend him to us. So I was like, okay,
Mhm.
great, let's try it out. Horrible experience. Not to dish him, but I'm just saying it was absolutely,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
clearly I didn't get pregnant. So of course I'm going to say it was a horrible thing. But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was
Mhm.
terrible, terrible, terrible.
So did
Sorry.
you go to him for IVF? Is that what you guys were going to him
Yes.
for?
So because
Okay.
Dr. Peterson's the name at the U, he said to me,
Okay.
he's like, Jen Carter, by the way, I would love to help you have a baby, but your next step would
Yeah.
be IVF. Like, absolutely. And that
Yeah.
was, like I said, that was devastating to hear. But at the same time, it gave me
Okay.
hope because I was like, well, okay, it's devastating, but also it's rewarding to know, okay, don't spend your money and your time or anything else on,
Mhm.
doing
Other things.
other things,
Yeah.
doing, like
Yeah.
Clonid and doing, like you said, like the transfer and stuff, you know.
Mhm.
So he
Yeah.
legit was like, that's your only way. I'm sorry to break the news to you, but guess what? That's what it is. And so that's why I said we
Yeah.
traveled and because we were like, oh, we knew.
Mhm.
Like that's our next
Yeah.
step and our only step. So
Mhm.
we're just gonna enjoy life until we can put down the money and afford to go the next step with IVF.
Totally. I
Anyways,
relate to that
that
so
was,
much. Jake and I did that too.
yeah. No, you know exactly. And I think anyone that we're talking to right now will understand. There comes a point where your doctor's like, "Oh, sorry, sweetie, this is your next step." And you don't want to hear it,
Mhm.
but it's the truth
Yeah.
and it's the real life truth that you just have to swallow
Mhm.
and accept and go, "Well, this sucks." But it's
Mhm.
the truth. And you have to,
Yeah.
I mean, life sucks and it all matters.
Mhm.
It's wonderful, but it also sucks that you have to at one point say, okay, I got this. I'm going to run with
Mhm.
my next goal or my next step. As when Dr. Peterson told us, love you guys, but P.S., the only next step is IVF. And we both looked at each other like just seeing dollar signs, like, oh crap, well, this
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
And one
Totally.
thing
So when
I
you
went,
guys
oh, go ahead, sorry.
what was that? Oh no, I was just gonna ask you go for it. Tell me.
Oh, I was just saying the one thing that bothered me through all of that was that
Mhm.
insurance will pay for birth control, but they won't
Oh,
pay for infertility. And I was
right.
furious about that. And one day,
Yeah.
Kelsey and I, we're going to figure that out.
Yes.
We're going to take it to the head
Oh, yeah.
and figure
I
that out.
have thought about that so many times
That is a
because
bunch of
and
BS. It's a bunch of BS.
yes, there
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
that's like a whole topic can of worms for me that I could go off on for so
right.
long
Me
because
too.
I think finances are a huge reason that hold people back from doing fertility treatments.
Right.
And
I'm
so
getting
it's just
ready.
it's an yeah, and it's interesting because there's other factors out there and things that pay to do the opposite. And so it's like
Absolutely.
I feel
Exactly.
like it should be on both play parts of the
It's
card, you know? And
maddening. Oh,
so
it's maddening. Like it makes me so furious. And I'll just throw it out there. I'm 100% Republican, but
mhm.
it it just there's these issues, and I don't want to get into politics, obviously, but that is one thing that I'm like, that is not okay.
Yeah.
Your insurance will prevent us from having children. But if we want
Mhm.
children, yeah, they'll pay for the birth, but that's it. That is so
Yeah.
wrong on so many levels.
Right? And so it's a huge chunk of money out because I think for us it ended up being around 23, 24 grand at the end of it. Like I think the IVF procedures was like 12 to 14,000,
Yep,
prescription or the drugs and stuff were around 7, and then we ended up
that
having to order
sounds
extra
about right.
medication. Yeah, yeah, and it's just a huge financial thing. I mean, we waited for years and traveled just like you guys hoping to do that. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I hope insurances, I hope a lot of companies and stuff start offering options for people for foster care, adoption, and infertility treatments
yes,
because there's so
all of
many
the
people that could
above.
benefit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
and
So, oh, sorry. Yeah,
no, I was just going to say, getting back into my story, our
yeah,
first
yeah.
attempt in Utah didn't work. And
Hmm.
I mean, hey, I could blame the doctors. I could blame me. I could blame anyone. I'm not blaming anyone
Hmm.
because it just was what it was. What can you do? It didn't
Yeah.
work, you know?
Hmm.
And I know I told you this the other day, but for me, it was so terrible. Like, I've
Hmm.
never been depressed more in my entire life. And I remember saying to my husband, like,
Oh.
oh, we might as well have taken $10,000 and or 12 even at that matter and thrown it
Mhm.
into the toilet and flushed it down because
Yeah.
that's how I felt that it didn't work
Mhm.
the first time.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, that's
I was
devastating.
so devastated and so depleted, like
Mhm.
feeling just absolutely, how could this happen to me? Because I think when
Mhm.
you put, quote unquote, put all your eggs in one basket, you legit, right? You think you're coming out with this baby at the end, you know? You put all
Mhm.
this money in,
Yeah.
like I said, you put all your eggs in one basket,
Yeah.
literally hoping and thinking and knowing, well, I'm going to have a baby at the end of this. Yay. But guess what? That
Mhm.
doesn't always happen. And it didn't happen for us. And it was so, so sad for me. Like, I
Mhm.
was complete mess. All like, I
Mhm.
can't even describe it. I was awful. And it was
Yeah, it's
so,
so many emotions.
yeah, it was so
Mhm.
bad that like after like I think it was like a month or two, my sweet dear husband was
Mhm.
like, Kenny, I know you're really struggling. And I kept telling him the whole flushing the money down the toilet thing. And he was like, oh, stop it.
Mhm.
We're one step closer. Look at it that way. You know, now we know what we have to do on the next try. You know, but I think for
Mhm.
me, I felt like a guinea pig that I was like,
Mhm.
no, so just like negative, and that's terrible. But that's just how I was feeling. So
Mhm.
he comes to me and was like,
Yeah.
let's go to Hawaii. I'm going to take you to Hawaii because
Oh,
you're having a really hard time. And I was like, the second he said, I'm taking you to
it's
Hawaii, I was
so
like, what?
sweet.
I'm like, I'm wonderful. Let's go. And it was, we went to Maui, and honestly, it was the best thing ever. And honestly, the funniest story is
Oh.
that, and this is funny because I know I'm like backtracking or whatever, but when we travel now without our kids, like I see dogs and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I just freak out about them because I just love them so, so much. And part of my
No.
husband's always like, oh Jen, stop. You gotta stop. And what's funny though is when we didn't have kids, I did the same thing with kids. I was
Oh,
like,
totally,
oh,
yeah.
look at that baby. It's the cutest baby you've ever seen. And just was like, just so it melted my heart to see these babies. And I think it's because I didn't have one. Well, now I have a
Oh.
dog, but I
Mhm.
still do that now when I go. Anyways,
You want more.
yes, I need more puppies. Anyways,
Yeah, you have a very big heart.
oh, you're so, so sweet. But anyways, in Hawaii, we met this sweet little couple that had their little babies in their stroller, their twin stroller, and they were about super close together, probably about
Mhm.
maybe 12 months to 15 months apart, these cute little babies.
Okay.
And we were like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, just dawdling over them, just loving on them. And the cute
Yeah.
mom was like, oh, yeah, this one's Jackson. And then I can't even remember what the daughter's name was, but she had these two cute little babies close to close. And so, I mean, naturally, I started talking about, okay, how did this work? How did this happen? And she started talking
Mhm.
about
Yeah.
infertility. And I was like, bing, bing, like a light starts. And I'm like, we can relate, obviously. I mean, that's why we were
Mhm.
there, because I just was having the worst time ever. And, anyways, her
Yeah.
cute story was like infertility, and then just God gave her a baby. There you go. So, and I just remember thinking,
Oh.
oh, if I could just pray for that, that's what I want. That would be me. Like,
Mhm.
I'll go through all this, God. I'll do all this.
Mhm.
But He's just blessing me with a baby afterwards that I don't have to work for. That just comes
Yeah.
natural. And we'll get to that in a minute. But
Mhm.
it was wonderful. It was so great. So,
Mhm.
moving on. So we came home from that trip and we kind of gathered our thoughts and started thinking again, okay, what are we going to do from here? And that was
Mhm.
when we both decided, okay, let's save up. We're going to do it again. And I had a dear
Yeah.
friend of mine, Krista, that had a friend of hers that was like, she came to me and said, Jen, you have to talk to my friend. I was like, okay, why? What? And she's like,
Mhm.
she went to California with this doctor that was very, um, not courageous. What's the word I'm thinking of? Anyways, doesn't matter. But we so the different our doctors here in Utah. And
Mhm.
she's like, you have to talk to her. And I was like, okay. So I call her. And it just like her and I instantly just had this bond. And
Mhm.
telling me about her doctor in California, Southern California. That's Dr. Sahakian. Shout out. Hi.
Mhm.
Is with like a UCLA clinic. And
Okay.
so she sent me his link and everything. But even when I talked to her, I just felt like peace come over me. Like,
Mm.
okay, maybe this is
Mhm.
our route. Like, I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
comfortable. This is wonderful. And, anyways,
Mhm.
long story short, I mean, I'm in Utah and he's in LA. And he said to me, like, we did like a voice conference. And, I told him my story and he told me, what he wanted to do. Oh, that's what I was trying to say. He was not conservative. He was very like,
Mm.
full gear, let's go, let's do this. And
Mhm.
we had sent our records from our other doctor to him, and he had read them before we had our conference. And he was
Mhm.
like, Jen, this will work for you. I will get you a baby. And I was like,
Oh.
okay, like I'll give you what
Oh.
because I was so,
Yeah.
we get so vulnerable and so desperate.
Mhm.
That's all we want as a
Yeah.
child. And
Yeah.
legit, he was so wonderful. So he was ordering all the shots, he was ordering all the medication and everything, but I was still doing it
Mhm.
through. I actually went through, um, like just my OB, like because
Mhm.
obviously he has to send it through someone, and they have to accept it and administer it and whatever. I mean, although through
Mhm.
in vitro, you administer your own shots and whatnot. And my husband was so
Yeah.
wonderful in doing that, as you know. That's how it
Oh.
works. But anyways, he was so wonderful. And so the time came where he was like, oh my gosh, your ovaries look wonderful. Your follicles all look great. Come on, it's time to come on down to LA. And we were like, okay. And I told my husband, I'm like, well, I'm not playing because that's a whole nother story. I have an issue with flying. So he's like, well, we have to stay there for at least 2 weeks. So let's just drive down.
Mhm.
We did. We road tripped it. we get to LA, we get to the doctor's office and whatnot, and they do the ultrasound. They're like, "Oh my gosh, your ovaries look amazing." I
Oh,
think, and like I told you, I have like a journal of everything, but I should have looked at it before this call. But I think at the time I had literally 28 follicles. That's a lot.
wow. That's
Yeah,
amazing. That is
that's
a lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
So my
Your body
issue
was working
wasn't
hard.
exactly. My issues
Yeah.
were never my ovaries like accepting the medication and whatnot. It was that my eggs were
Mhm.
not great. So that was
Mm.
my issue and that was my problem. And
Mhm.
so anyways, like I said, we get to California and they look at, do the ultrasound. They're like so excited, like, oh my gosh, look at all these follicles. This is so wonderful. And then, they're like, okay, they schedule our like proceeding to take all the eggs out. And that's when the
Mhm.
doctor was like, yeah, no, this is not good. And because they took
Oh.
out my eggs from all those wonderful 28 follicles, but I literally had 5 eggs that were like so so. And he was like,
Wow.
oh, he came to me like almost in tears. He's like, Jenny, I'm sorry to tell you this. And I was like, what? What? So sad. And he's like, your eggs are not great. And I was like, what do you
Oh,
mean? Like at the time, I was like 27, I think. Yeah, 27.
okay.
It's like, what do you mean my eggs aren't great? He's just like, I'm sorry, sweetie, but they're just not very good. And
Mm.
I just, of course, get depleted again and get all sad and depressed. And, anyways, but he said to me, he said, you know what we're going to do? And I said, what? And he goes, we're going to take the very best sperm and we're going to take those. We got 5 eggs that were so so. But he said, we're going to
Mhm.
take all that great sperm and we're going to take the 5 so eggs, which y'all know, 2 were A's. Oh, one was an A, one was a B, the rest were C's. And he said,
Okay.
we're going to take that and run with it. That's all we can do. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, okay, I trust you. You do you. But he was
Yeah.
so much more like so not conservative like the Utah doctors were. Like he was way more
Mhm.
like, let's do this. Let's figure this out and go
Yeah.
with it. And I was like,
Yeah.
wonderful, let's do it. Anyways,
Mhm.
long story short, they wound up, I had 5 embryos that attached and, eggs, sperm, that
Yeah.
became embryos.
Yeah, I went through the blaster stage and yeah,
Yep,
made it.
all of that. Yep. And I had 5 and I had an A and a B, and then I had 3
Mhm.
C's. And he said to me, he was
Okay.
like, Jen, I can't freeze your C's, but I've seen C's
Okay.
take and become children.
Mhm.
So I want to take your A and your B and implant them as
Mhm.
well as your 3 C's. And I'm like, looking at
5?
going,
All 5?
hold on, that's 5. What? What? And I remember looking at Carter and he's white as a ghost going, wait, what? Our doctor just told us that we're going to have 5 implanted embryos.
5.
5.
Wow.
And I legit was
Wow.
just like, at that point, I was, like I said, I keep saying vulnerable because it's true. It's like we're all in a
Mhm.
club. Like we're so vulnerable. We'll
Yeah.
do anything to have a child.
Yeah.
And
Yes, yes.
vulnerable, desperate, whatever you want to say. Anyways, and he was just like, that's what we're doing. And I was like, okay. Like I didn't even question it for 2 seconds. I was like, great, let's do it.
Mhm.
And I remember looking over at
Yeah.
Carter and he was like I said, why does it go? He's like, wait, what? What'd you just what'd you just
Mhm.
like consent to?
Yeah.
Having 5 embryos implanted. And I just looked at him and I held his hand and I said, babe, trust this doctor. Like honestly, I just have the best feeling about him. Like we just need to trust him and trust his
Mhm.
instinct, knowledge, and his science and all of the above. And
Mhm.
also trust
Yeah.
God. That you know what? This is
Mhm.
in our hands at this point. This is all you. It's
Yeah.
all you guys.
Yeah.
And we just did it. And guess what happened? I got pregnant with
What?
one baby, one child who's Jackson, and
Whoa.
amazing and
Oh,
so wonderful. And I cannot, he's an old soul and just, I can't even, I've talked to you about him before. He is
he's
just
so great.
the apple of my eye. Like he is so amazing, wonderful. And I'm not saying it's because he came from in vitro, but he just is, I don't know. God clearly just was like, there's your child. And he's so wonderful.
Oh,
But
I'm so
I'm
glad.
sorry I'm talking up a little, but I don't want to discount talking about Jackson, but I wanted to talk about
Oh,
this as
he's so
well. So
sweet.
Dr. Sahakian, by the way, um, he had a plan where
Mhm.
we could actually his base price for like, okay, yep, I'll do in vitro was $12,000. I mean, granted, this was back
Mhm.
in 2007,
Okay.
but he was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my base price. But he also had, and I wanted to
Mhm.
mention this for, women listening to this and men, and, I want them to
Mhm.
know that he had the base price of $12,000, but he also
Mhm.
had like an insurance policy where he was
Oh,
like,
fantastic.
guess what? You pay me 5,000 more dollars. So, oh, sorry, it was 13,000 because it wound up being 18,000. So, sorry,
Okay.
13,000, 5,000 more for an
Mhm.
insurance policy being like, hey, if you don't get pregnant, and pregnant meaning you get to the 12-week mark of carrying a
Okay.
child. So it was like
Mhm.
legit. And he was
Yeah.
like, you pay this $5,000 more. If you do not carry that child to 12 weeks, guess what? I'll do it all over again and you get to pay me nothing. Well, you had to pay for the drugs,
Wow.
which
The
makes
medications, yeah.
because the
Yeah.
medications
But
because
his
they're expensive.
services.
Like his
Mhm.
services
Yeah.
were technically free at that point, which I was like, part of me feels
Yeah.
like maybe that's, I'm not saying that's why it worked, but I'm saying that gave me such a
Mhm.
peace of mind that I was like,
Mhm.
okay, we can just do this and roll with it. And I can just relax
Yeah.
and do my part of, being on bed rest and all that. That I
Yeah.
legit was like, that's amazing. I had never heard of that
Oh, for
before.
sure.
And so, of course,
That
we
is
paid
fantastic.
$5,000 extra because we're like, well, yeah,
Mhm.
why would you not at,
Yeah.
at this point,
Yeah.
a second attempt and everything. So I was like,
Mhm.
sure, yep, we'll do it. And of course, it worked on the
Yeah.
first try, but did I ever second guess us paying that extra 5,000? Absolutely not. Like it didn't
Mhm.
even ever come over my mind. Like, oh shoot, we got ripped.
Yeah.
Whatever. I was like, I didn't even care. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm having a baby. You know, it was
Yeah. Well, I
wonderful.
like that you mentioned too the peace of mind that it brought you through that experience because I
Yeah,
do think there is a lot to that where it's like knowing, oh, okay, we're giving this our all, but also we have the option to do it again until it
right,
works. And that is a
totally.
huge, huge comfort. That's
Right,
fantastic.
absolutely.
You
Yeah.
had that.
Well, and another thing I want to note on is you know I'm obviously this podcast goes throughout the nation and the world and whatnot, but another thing I wanted to note on was that we live in Utah. That's fine to
Mhm.
accept, but we hello, that's where I'm at. Um, being in LA, and I think it was August when we did our second attempt.
Okay.
And so when you have your 2 days of bed rest after they do the
Mhm.
transfer where you can't move and
Mhm.
whatnot. So, but then after that, I didn't want to drive home. I was like, we're not getting in a car. I'm not doing that. We went to the
Mhm.
beach, like actually in Malibu, where there was like
Oh.
no one around. End of August, I think school had started
Mhm.
and whatnot. And we
Yeah.
went to the beach and
Good
I
time to be there.
laid there like a clam, just like soaking in the
Oh.
sun. And you know how good vitamin D is for your body. Like, I
Mhm.
swear to this day that I guarantee you that's part of why it worked. because I was able to just
Mhm.
relax 100%, take in the
Mhm.
sunshine, not think about anything, but just lay there and be one with the world.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to mention that because that's
I love
important.
that.
Like, if you're
Yes, for sure.
trying in vitro and you're doing all of this and there's stresses in the world, which happens, people work, I get it.
Mhm.
Women trying to get pregnant, they work. That's a huge
Mhm.
stress. Like, take yourself out of that
Yeah.
realm and go, okay, and
Mhm.
maybe say, okay, I'm going to take 2 months to just
Mhm.
focus on getting pregnant. And,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
investing all this money and all this energy and all this prayers and whatnot. Take that time
Mhm.
to just focus on you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and take care of your health because getting pregnant
Mhm.
is part of your health. It really is, truly.
Mhm.
Sorry, I
Yes.
want to cry
Yes.
again, but I'm about to. It just is so important.
Oh.
And these to me were all the factors that I truly believe, not, I mean,
Mhm.
let alone the faith, and which if you don't have that, that's fine. It's okay. But
Mhm.
that to me, those factors all played into me getting pregnant,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then,
I I can totally relate to that, and I
yeah,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, it all did. And moving on with my story. So after we had our sweet little, perfect little sweet Jackson, love him so dearly. Um, I had a friend of mine that, I know I'm jumping back and forth, but I had a friend of mine that had a baby with, okay, first, sorry, she first adopted and then she did
Okay.
in vitro and had twins. I told you about this. And then she
Mhm.
just got pregnant. And so this was when I was first kind of going through my journey of starting and all that. And she got pregnant. And
Mhm.
after all she went through, bless her sweetheart. But I was like,
Yeah.
what? Like, and I
Mhm.
felt I was super jealous and I felt like
Mhm.
animosity. And I was just
Mhm.
like, that's not fair. That is not okay. That's not
Mhm.
fair. And something obviously was
Yeah.
like in the back of my head, Jen, it's okay. Everyone has a different story.
Mhm.
It's all right. But I
Mhm.
just legit was like,
It's
come
hard to
on,
see.
really? But then once I went through
Mhm.
it myself, I realized, you know what?
Mhm.
Good for her. Bless her. God gave her a gift and good for her. You know? Like
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
realized at the time, you know how we all get jealous at times, and then you
Totally.
realize
Yeah.
your own situation and you're like, you kind of
Mhm.
realize, oh, well, God gives gifts in different ways. It's not your timing,
Mhm.
you know? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, but I think you're right, though. I think that is a lot of common emotion, though, that people feel. It's like you get that invite to the baby shower, and
mhm,
or you find out your sister's pregnant and she
right,
has no idea you've been trying for years and years and stuff.
right,
Or it's like all those
absolutely.
dynamics where it's like you want to be so supportive and happy, but then there's also other things running behind your head, and so it's trying to navigate those feelings. And yeah, it's much easier to look at it in hindsight a lot of times than in the moment.
Absolutely, yes, 100%. Like, yes, definitely. And you know what? I had my own hindsight story. So after, like
Mhm.
I said, after we, did all this with Jackson, he was, obviously after we had him and went through all the struggles to get him, I'm like,
Mhm.
well, I'm not going on birth control. Like, why would I?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I legit was just like, we'll just, we'll see what happens, whatever. And he was 18
Mhm.
months old when I found out I was pregnant with my second child. Avery,
Oh
sorry.
my gosh. And this was
Was
oh.
so yeah, they're 27 months apart, but he was 18 months old when I got just pregnant on here on my
Oh.
own, just with having a good time, you know.
That's
And
incredible. That's like the dream right there.
it is, and I cry because it's such a wonderful blessing, and I'm so, so
Mhm.
grateful that I have the patience just to
Oh.
endure going through the struggles of trying to get my first
Mhm.
child and having the patience and
Mhm.
having the faith. And it
Mhm.
all, like I said, we didn't even have the money to do it, but somehow it all just worked out. We figured it out.
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
said, we put
Mhm.
Jackson on a credit card. Like, I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
say, guess what? I bought my child with a credit card. I mean, it was like 18 months interest free, and we're like, perfect. We qualified, and that's
Let's
how
go.
we literally bought our child on a credit card.
Oh my
And it
gosh, I love
was
it.
honestly, it's just what you have to do. You have to have the patience, and
Mhm.
continuing on after we had Avery, my second, and like I said, they're 27 months apart. I After we had her, I said to my husband, I was like, Carter, this will never happen again, by the way. There's no way.
Mhm.
Like that is
It just felt
never.
like such a miracle.
Yeah, she was such a
Mhm.
miracle that I was just like, there's no way that would happen twice. So again,
Mhm.
we don't go on birth control. She was 6 months old, and I got pregnant with our third child then. 6 months old. And I remember, like,
Oh my gosh.
I was visiting my sister in Visalia, California, and we're just, I bring Jackson and Ava, and they're just playing with their cousins and whatnot. And I had drove out there, and Carter was on a business trip, and I picked him up. I drove down and picked him up at LAX. And the next day, we stayed
Mhm.
in a hotel that night. And the next day, we took our two kids to Disneyland. So because we kind of
Mhm.
planned it all out. Oh, I'll
Oh,
be in California. You're coming in. I'll pick you up. Blah, blah, blah. We'll go to Disneyland. Well,
that's so
I didn't
fun.
realize that I was totally ovulating. And I told you this the other time. Oh, by the way, girls, FYI, when you have like the
Yeah.
gross, clear egg yolk, or not yolk, sorry,
Mhm.
egg white
Yeah.
stuff, you're ovulating.
Mhm.
Hello, you're ovulating. I learned that the
That's a
easy
good
and good
tip.
way, the hard but the good way. Yeah, because I was at my sister's house for like a week or so, and I'm like, what is happening to me? And I called my OBGYN, and I was like, I need to get in. Something's not right. This is what's happening. And they're like, okay, yeah,
Mhm.
we'll get you in. And so I had scheduled an appointment. But, anyways, going back, I picked my husband up from LAX, and it'd been what, a week or two since we'd seen each other. So you know what happens next, right? Obviously. We're in that. It happened. And anyways, whatever. We took our kids to Disneyland, had a great time, drove home. And I go to my appointment at my OBGYN, and they're like, we're just gonna do blood work. I'm like, okay. They do all this blood work.
Mhm.
And turns out they come back and they're like, oh, by the way, you're pregnant. And I was like, no way. There's no way I'm
Just
pregnant. Like,
shocked.
I mean, my daughter was 6 months old. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I keep joking to this day, and I keep telling my husband, don't you ever dare go out of town for 2 weeks. I'm like,
You jinxed us.
we're definitely done. And I was like, don't you
Mhm.
dare. How funny though. And that's why I know it's gross, but that's why I wanted to talk about the egg yolk or egg white thing,
Mhm. Yeah,
because
the egg
I
white.
didn't
Yeah.
know.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
I didn't know
Mhm.
that I was apparently ovulating because, P.S., I don't have periods. I have PCOS. I never had
Mhm.
periods ever. And so
Mhm. Yeah.
having that egg white experience, I didn't know what was happening, but
Mhm.
I learned the good way and the hard way and all of the above. That's what was happening to
Yeah.
me. So even if you're not
Mhm.
having a period, it can still happen for you. That's my joy
Yeah.
I want to tell the world is guess what? You don't even know.
Oh.
Oh, and then P.S., by the way,
Yes.
I do have 4 children, and my sweet little baby, I can't stop with, not mentioning her.
Oh.
So my mom and my sisters all decide, let's go take a girls trip to Vegas. And so we decide to drive down, and okay, let me back up. Sorry, I keep saying that. But so I had an experience where Beckham was like 2 weeks old. Okay, this is my third. And I'm a backup again. Sorry. I couldn't nurse him because I have PCOS, and you don't, when you develop your breast buds, you actually don't, when you have PCOS, when you're aging and like in your teenage
Mhm.
years, you actually do not produce duct buds like to breastfeed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
had a nurse tell me that when I was pregnant with my fourth. Thank goodness she told me, because I was like, I'm not even going to try,
Yeah,
because I tried to breastfeed and I never could,
yeah,
because
you're like, "I wish I would've known this earlier."
yeah, I should have gone back to that. But things
That
keep
would've been
flipping in
nice.
my head.
Yeah.
But I'm saying though
Yeah.
that I legit like tried to breastfeed because I was like, that's what I want to do. And had I
Yeah.
known with PCOS, like, I'm just saying out there, girls, like, don't even try. Give yourself a pat on the back
Mhm.
and say, you know what? I'm human. This is the body
Mhm.
God gave me, and there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing, by the way, absolutely
Mhm.
nothing. Had I
That's
had
great
that
advice.
nurse, I was pregnant with my fourth,
Yeah.
but she told me that. Had had her
Yeah.
say that to me when I'm pregnant with my first, I never would
Right?
have tried. I mean, I tried everything, the stress and the so not worth it.
Mhm.
I mean, formula these
That would've
days,
been so nice. Yeah.
absolutely. And formula these days is wonderful. There's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with
Oh,
it.
yeah.
All four of my kids are as healthy as can be. Like
Mhm.
there's nothing. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And anyways,
I
going
love
back to
that.
that, yeah, so true.
Yeah.
But
My
anyways,
kids are
so,
formula fed too.
and they're healthy and sweet and beautiful and kind and all of the above. Like,
Yeah.
that, there's nothing wrong with formula feeding. Just let me just
Yeah.
tell you,
It's great.
you need
And
to know.
dads and other people can help too, which is a huge benefit.
Oh, your husband, your friends, your nanny, whatever you have, yeah, absolutely, they can all help, and it's wonderful
Mhm.
to be able to take that
Yeah.
off of you, and that stress.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is that, so Beckham was my third, was 2 weeks old, and I'm sitting there feeding him his bottle and just doing my thing, bonding and loving on him. And all of a sudden, I just have this like feeling come over me of, oh, by the way, he's not your last. I was like, wait, what? He's 2 weeks old.
What?
What are you doing this? And it was just God
Oh.
telling me, guess what, honey? You got another baby coming. Don't forget. Like, it was a reminder of, don't you forget. And
Mhm.
I'm in his room and I look over into the doorway and I see this adorable little like toddler. Just
Oh.
gonna cry, but that
So
was
sweet.
just blonde curls and big brown eyes. And I
Mhm.
saw her and I was like, feeding him. And I'm like, he's 2 weeks old. And I literally laughed. I go, oh, come on. Really?
Oh
Like,
my
really?
gosh.
That was such a special, sweet moment. But it was just him reminding me, guess what? Don't ever give up because you have another one coming. And that was just such a treasure to me. It was
Mhm.
so, so special.
Oh.
And I truly don't
Thanks
know
for
what I ever
sharing
did,
that.
but I'm so, so blessed to have my four kids. And again,
Oh.
no protection. Beckham, my third, and Addison, my fourth, are um, literally 24 months and 1 week apart. Like, they're literally 2 years and
Oh.
1 week apart. And it was just
Oh.
that I just listened to the higher power and just realized, you know what? There's a plan beyond what you ever could imagine. And those of you that don't have the
Mhm.
faith, that's fine too. You'll find it somewhere. It will come to you and you'll
Mhm.
know. And I legit though,
Yeah.
after that moment, what I was saying is that I was going to Vegas with my mom and my sisters, and I had the whole, egg white situation going on again. And I was like, yeah. It's like all excited. And I look
Like, I know what this means.
I'm leaving for a week, and I like I said, my husband was 100% done, and he will hate me for admitting this, but I've already admitted it to him, and we've gotten past it. But he was like, "You're not having another child. We are so done." And I was like, "Okay."
Oh my
But
god.
we were on birth control. Like, if you have an issue and you don't want more children,
Mhm.
hey, put on a condom, dude. Like, don't blame
Yeah,
this all
yeah.
on me. You have a knack in this too. You have a say, you. Anyways,
Yeah,
I had the, like I said, the egg white thing going, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know I'm ovulating. So of course I
yeah.
doesn't take a lot, first of all, to tempt a man to be like, okay. And it was like I was really about to walk out the door to Vegas. And I was like, hey, hey, hey. I of course seduced him. And long
This is
story
so
short,
great.
that's what happened. I got pregnant. And he
Oh
which is
my
actually
gosh.
not this because it's too good. It's too good not to mention. Anyway, so I go to Vegas for a week, like I said, with my mom and my sisters. And we get home, and like the day after I come home, we fly out to Half Moon Bay, like in
Oh, cool.
Northern California, like by just south of San Francisco. And
Okay, fun.
I was a big tennis player at the time, and he's in meetings, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go rent a ball machine and go hit some balls and do my thing. And I did that, and I'm like hitting balls, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna pass out. I'm gonna fall over. What is happening to me? Like, this is so not me. Like, I
Oh,
was 31 at the time. Like, I still had it going. Like, I could do this.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I legit though, like I had to sit down on the bench, and I just sat there and I grabbed my hand. I'm like, what is happening to me? Something's not working right. And so I like pack up all my stuff, and I decide, like, you know what, I have to go into town. Like, I just am not feeling right. So I
Mhm.
go into town, and oh no, another note. Sorry, me being me and super vulnerable here. I also thought, oh, I've got a yeast infection. And those to me were
Oh,
like the
mhm,
dizziness and the yeast infection were like, put those together and it's like, you're pregnant. Like that just has
mhm,
been my past. So I get
mhm.
into town by, monostat kit and whatever, and a pregnancy kit. So I was like, I swear I am. But if I'm not, it's fine. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. I just needed to know.
Yeah.
And of course I get
Mhm.
back to the room, and oh yeah, by the way, it's positive. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that the whole seduction
Yeah.
would actually work. I'm
Woohoo!
like so excited and ecstatic. I was like, this just completes our family. We've got the
Oh.
four boy, girl. Like, well, at the time, obviously, I didn't know it was a girl, but that's what wound up happening is we have boy, girl, boy, girl. And
Oh.
anyway, so I'm so excited and ecstatic. And so when Carter, my husband, gets out of meetings that day, I there's like a big, like beautiful like fence that looks over the water, and there's the sunset, facing west and over the beautiful Pacific. And so I get this idea like, oh, we're gonna tell him at sunset. It's so exciting. And
Oh.
by the way, past note, he had just gotten like a new Toyota Tundra that he had ordered and selected everything he ever wanted on it.
Oh, fun.
Literally,
Yeah.
he had it maybe a week or two, is all.
Okay.
It's a 5-seater, which is what our family was at the time. And
Mhm.
so I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And I'm going to go tell him at sunset, thinking I'll be all romantic and cute. So we're like, just watching the sunset, and I hug him close, and I'm like, guess what, hon? And he's like, what, babe? And I'm like, we're going to have another baby. And he goes, what?
Oh.
And he goes, and it was like kind of bugged. Like I said, he was done, and in all his sweet glory and loveliness, and I love him to death. But he legit was
Oh
like,
my
are you
god.
kidding me? I'm like, yep, having another baby. And he goes, oh my gosh. He puts his hand in his head like this and goes, yeah, my truck is useless. From a 5-person family to a 6. And his truck was just a 5.
Yeah.
Like, Oh no, now my truck's used. But that's just how
That's
I
so
made
great.
little journey because that is my life and it's glorious and beautiful and stressful and wonderful and all of the above. Like,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
that's an incredible journey.
it has been, like I said, so crazy, but so wonderful and beautiful in its own way that I can't
Yeah.
even describe like how grateful I am. It's just, it has been, I've been
Oh.
so blessed. And the fact that we always joke, well, we paid for one, but we got three for free.
It's a big deal. It's pretty incredible.
It's a real story though. And it was, at the time, it was a big deal. But that's our joke
Yeah,
because when life gives you lemons, you make a joke about it. I don't like to say you make
for sure.
lemonade, but
Yeah.
I make a joke about it. It's me. I make that whole personality, by the way. I just make a joke. And it was horrible going through
Oh,
it, but I could never have written the book of this is how it all turned out, you know?
yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
just is what it is. And I'm one of those very lucky, blessed people. And I pray for those women out there that continue to struggle and
Yeah.
have to quote unquote pay for all their babies. I bless your sweethearts. Like
Yeah.
that is a huge struggle and a huge problem that, again, I
Mhm.
wish there was more. You doing this podcast, by the way, bless you, is so enlightening and so wonderful that you would do this and share our stories with other people that know I mean it. It's so true. Like God bless you. Like
Well,
honestly.
that's what got me through it. Like I think that was something that was a huge support to me because I was able to see they survived, like, no matter what their because everyone's outcome was different. Everyone's story of how they ended up having kids or even some not ending up with kids,
Right.
I but it gave me hope that seeing no matter what our situation is, I can still find happiness, I can still find joy, and I can
Yes,
still love
absolutely.
others. Like, it just helped me see this bigger perspective. So, for those in the thick of it, do you have any advice for them?
Um okay, it's funny that my hand's doing this because never give up hope. Honestly. So my sister-in-law, bless her sweetheart, she gave me like a little plaque during after our first in vitro failed, and she gave me a
Mm,
plaque that said hope on it, and I hung it above our doorway from our master bedroom. So every day I'd lay in bed and see it, and I'd walk out my door and I'd see it. And I, like I said, I wound up getting hope tattooed on my wrist because it literally saved me. That was one thing.
mm.
I'm sorry to get so emotional, but that was one thing I never did was give up on hope because that is a true gift from,
Mhm.
I say God, but from whatever you believe in, the higher spirit
Mhm.
or whatever you want to say. It is truly a gift
Yeah.
that we're given as human beings. Like,
Mhm.
never give up on hope,
Mhm.
whatever your
Yeah.
journey is, whether it's in
Mhm.
vitro, whether it's adoption, whether it's foster
Mhm.
care, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It's all a true
Mhm.
blessing. And
Yeah.
I think as women, we're all meant to be mothers. And
Mhm.
it is just truly a gift. And we can't take that for granted ever.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
like I said,
That's what
never give up on hope. Like that's why I
I
tattooed it on
love
me. I
that.
was like,
I love it. Well, it's a beautiful perspective to have,
yeah,
and I think to the word hope itself is such a great reminder that sometimes when we are in the depths of despair and stuff, that if we just even think about the word itself, like
yeah,
it just brings on that new perspective. And so sometimes we need that in those hard moments. That's a really great motto to have. I love that, Jen.
absolutely. That's like I said, that's why it's tattooed on my wrist because honestly, that like I always joke with my sister-in-law, like, look what you did to me. I'm like, it's
Oh
it's
my
we just
gosh.
kind of have a funny little banter about it, but I was like, truly, like I after I went through everything, and I was like, that word will never not like resonate inside of me. Like it
Mhm.
was just
Yeah.
what kept me hanging on through all of the
What you
hardships
needed.
and the monetarily stuff. And like I said at the beginning, like
Mhm.
our first one failed, and I was like, well, like all bratty, like all just being,
Mhm.
no compassion whatsoever, just thinking like, well, this sucks. Give me $10,000 so I can flush it down the toilet. I was so
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah, it's a
And I'm
hard, yeah.
so taken back of like, this is so not fair. And I felt like
Mhm.
it was like something was like overshadowing me, shadowing, sorry, me, that it
Mhm.
was like my fault somehow, which obviously it wasn't.
Mhm.
But when something
Mhm.
doesn't go right in your life, I feel like we very much, as human beings, tend to blame ourselves for
Mhm.
whatever reason.
Yeah.
We just do.
Yeah.
And that's how I was.
Mhm.
I was literally like,
Mhm.
did I not live right? Did I not do this right?
Mhm.
Am I not kind enough? Am I not faithful enough? Am I
Mhm.
all of the above came to me in like a huge
Mhm.
just whirlwind. And none of
Mhm.
that's true, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
ever forget about yourself during this process. Don't
Yeah.
ever undermine yourself, because guess what?
Mhm.
You are worth it 100%. And every woman deserves to be a mother, no matter what.
Oh,
Done. Mic
I
drop.
love that. I love that. It's so true. It's so true. I love it. Jen, I'm thinking back to your journey, and you've had an experience with a doctor you didn't have the greatest experience with, and a doctor that you really liked. Do you have any advice for anyone looking for a doctor? Like things to look for, things to watch out for, any of that?
I Yes, and I do. And my thing was, I was luckily enough, like, or not luckily enough, but I had one doctor that I feel like the people that had success with him were like, "Oh my gosh, 100% you have to go to him." But then
Mhm.
I didn't have success with him, and so of course I'm not like, "No, ew." But
Mhm.
it's we don't need to get into that, but it wound up being a horrible situation for many women, not just myself. But like I said, the my dear friend that recommended the doctor in LA, he was wonderful. And look into, I will say this. Okay, after your question, I had to think about it for a sec. But I will say this: look into your state wherever you live, and look at the reviews, but also look at what they're willing to do for you. Because in here in
Mhm.
Utah, apparently, there's certain laws that they would only allow a transfer of two embryos. It didn't matter
Mhm. Yeah.
what level they were, how great they looked, or how bad they looked, or whatever. That was the law.
Mhm.
We can
Mhm.
only transfer two embryos. And then I go to
Mhm.
LA, and this doctor's like, "You're a gumball machine. Here you go. Here's five." But I say that
Mhm.
jokingly, but in
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
seriousness, there's not a
Yeah.
law in California that
Mhm.
makes it to where the doctors can only have so much power, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
would be my
Yeah.
advice, is there's okay going out of state. That's okay. I
Mhm.
mean, like
Yeah.
it's not a shame to have to go, you know what? My state doesn't offer what I need or what I want. So I'm gonna go out of
Totally.
state, and that's fine. And yes, it might be a
Mhm.
little more expensive, like the situation we dealt with, but guess what? Obviously, I got pregnant, but it was so worth it. And the fact that he
Mhm.
had that extra little policy for us to be able
Mhm.
to go back if we needed to was a
Yeah.
great thing.
Yeah.
They didn't have that
Yeah.
here, and I
Mhm.
mean, my sister-in-law, not the one that gave me the sign, but a different one, she also had to go through it,
Mhm.
and she went through the University of Utah and had a wonderful experience. And they were able to
Mhm.
freeze her eggs and, reimplant
Yeah.
them and things like that. But I wasn't able to do that because I didn't have the quality of eggs to freeze. But
Mhm.
I'm just saying, everyone's story and everyone's like direction is so different that it's
Mhm.
okay to like, and now I feel like we have at the fingertips, we have the power to research more than I did
Mhm.
even in what did I say it was 20 what it was it 2005, you know?
Yeah.
Like we have so much
Yeah.
more research to be at our fingertips to be able to, you know what?
For
Do the work.
sure.
Before you pay all that money and
Mhm.
invest your life and your stress and your energy,
Yeah.
do
Oh,
the
yeah.
work to
Mhm.
research these wonderful doctors that are, by the way, out there because God created them
Mhm.
to help us women
Yeah.
that cannot have children on our own.
Mhm.
And that's,
Yeah.
I always say, like, that I was born when I was for a reason because
Mhm.
God needed me to have scientists to help me have a child and kind of get
Mhm.
all the pipes working or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I always say that because I know there's people out there too that have issues with, oh, well, when you bring science into it, and that's fine. I'm not judging. I'm just saying though,
Mhm.
a lot of people have issues with that they feel like,
Mhm.
well, if I'm supposed to have a child, I would on my own. But I'm telling
Mhm.
those people right
Yeah.
now, like in zero judgment, obviously, if that's your story and that's your case, that's fine.
Mhm.
But I'm saying that there's nothing wrong with God giving us scientists to help us have children. That's what I
Yeah.
believe. That's just me.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying
Yeah.
there's a reason I was born when I was because
Mhm.
I needed help,
Mhm.
and
And it's awesome that that's an option and available because that hasn't always been the
absolutely.
case, and so it is a really cool time to be around, and, I mean, it's really special seeing those little embryos on the paper and seeing them grow, and it's incredible what they can do.
It's like literally mind blowing what they can do.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even the fact
Yeah.
that they can freeze an embryo and still implant it and it works. Like I never had that experience, but that still
Mhm.
blows my mind. Like I'm like,
Totally, right?
I mean, even just
Yeah.
okay, here's a light note that I wanted to mention, but I didn't. So our sweet little doctor, I'm gonna throw out his name again. Dr. Sahikian, love you so much in
Oh.
LA, UCLA. So I just wake up from them taking my eggs out and I told you this, but I had to share because it's too funny
It's
not.
so funny.
It's so great. He might hate me for saying this, but I'm doing it anyways. Whatever. I'm being me right now. So, anyways, I had just woken up because they put you under when they extract your eggs and whatnot. So I had just woken up from anesthesia and I'm totally out of it. My husband, sweet dear him, is by my side holding my hand and he's like, "Hey babe." And then the doctor comes in to check on me. "How you doing?" And my husband gets all concerned, like, "Hold on, wait." And he looks at the clock and he goes, "When is it my time? Like, when do I have to do my part?" Like, yes, we
That's
do need
so
your support at
great.
one point, but he was just concerned, like, I think he was nervous, like, okay, at one point, do I do
Mhm.
my part? You're like, my
Yeah,
poor sweet
yeah,
wife
they're one
woke
big
up.
role.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my sweet wife just woke up from anesthesia and, she's like out of it and whatnot. But I think he was like so sweet, like, okay, when is it my turn? Like, what do I do? Oh, my doctor. Like I said, I'm still completely out of it from the anesthesia and whatnot. But my sweet doctor goes, "Oh, don't worry, buddy. It'll either be your sperm or mine." Just making light of the situation. Like, how hysterical is that? And that's when I knew
Oh my gosh.
I was in the right
Yeah.
place. I was like me as
Yeah.
a very, jokey hello
It
person. I was legit like, oh my gosh, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like it was so wonderful and so great. Like he broke the ice like no one has ever done. And I was like, you're the
That's
best ever.
hysterical.
It was so
It's
fun.
such a Jen joke too, like, I could see you joking about that, and that's what
Oh yeah,
I think is, like, so
right.
great about
I
it.
love it. It's such a Jen joke. It is. I legit was like, oh my gosh, I love you even more now. Like
Oh my god.
he was so wonderful. So there, of course, is my
Yeah.
recommendation. there's so
Yeah.
many options out there. Do your research, girls.
Mhm.
Like, do your research. Like,
Totally. I think that's great advice.
it is.
Looking back at your full journey and kind of having that hindsight perspective, is there anything you wished you would have known?
Yes, to be honest, like I wish I wouldn't have just like listened to the women that had success and gone to the first doctor that
Mhm.
everyone around me, like in my small
Mhm.
little town, was like, oh, you have to go to him. He's the best. But they all had success from him.
Mhm.
I never had one person
Mhm.
tell me to go to him that it didn't work, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
was like my first go to, okay, yes, I'm going to go to him because it worked for so and so and so and so, you know? Like,
Mhm.
I wish I
Yeah.
would have
Totally.
taken a step back and not, like, I keep saying vulnerable, but you really truly are.
Mhm.
I wish I would have
Yeah.
stepped back
Yeah.
and done my own research. And like, I wish I wouldn't have
Okay.
just gone to him because people had success. Like, I wish I would have talked to somebody
Mhm.
that had not had success with him and find out their
Mhm.
story. Because first of all,
Mhm.
everyone's so different. And
Mhm.
like I said, I'm of course here I am like shouting out the doctor we wound up using that worked for us. But hey,
Mhm.
guess what? I'm sure there's 1,000 women out there that it didn't work for them going through that doctor.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like I know I said that
See both
before.
sides of the
I'm
story.
just saying, you need to see both sides. And you need to
Yeah.
do what's right for you. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with researching it on your own, taking your friend's
Mhm.
advice, absolutely, but also do your own research. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and today with 2024, we have so many outlets that can help us.
Mhm.
Like I said, mine was
So
back
many.
in what did I say, 2005, that
Mhm.
it we did have outlets then, but now we have so many more outlets. Like use them to your
Mhm.
discretion and to your right and your ability because that is
Mhm.
like it's not like you're researching a restaurant to go eat at. Like you're
Yeah.
researching
Yeah.
your wealth or your wealth
Mhm.
and your stress and your body and all of the above. Like give
Yeah.
yourself the right to research that and pick who's right for you.
Mhm.
Yes, it's great to
Yeah.
get people's feedback and whatnot, but I'm saying like
Mhm.
everyone's different. We all know that. It's like trying to
Mhm.
find a pediatrician for your children once you have them.
Mhm.
Like it's yeah, you'll
Mhm.
take someone's, feedback, but for you, you need to find what's right for you.
Mhm.
So that's my advice. And I kind of based on that, but that to me is all I can think of as far as advice because it's so important that you
Yeah.
advocate, for yourself during this process. Like you are still you and you have a voice. Yeah. You
Yeah.
100%
Yeah,
have
and you're so right.
a voice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you nailed it on the head where a lot of times we're coming and we're so vulnerable. We've been trying for years. We already know we want kids. And so it's
Right.
like, what do we do? And so a lot of times we sometimes miss some of those steps that could be really valuable leading into that experience. And so I think that's really great advice. I would also love to hear if you had any advice for couples going through infertility. I feel like you and your husband have really made a great team throughout this journey. Do you have any advice for couples going through
Oh my
infertility?
gosh, we definitely did. Honestly, like it was just first of all, I was lucky enough to marry my best friend. Not everyone can say that. And
Ooh.
I know that's so cliche and whatnot, but I was lucky enough to marry my best friend. And like I said, when our first one failed and he was like, stop, I'm taking you to Hawaii because he knew exactly
Mhm.
what I needed because I went into a dark, deep
Mhm.
depression and I was like a hot
Mhm.
mess. And he saw and he was
Mhm.
like, well, I know how to get to this girl's heart. I'll take her to a beach in sunshine.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that I'm not saying like, You have to do all
Yeah.
that. And it's like, we didn't even have the money to do that. But the fact that he
Mhm.
realized, like, and the second he said Hawaii, I was like, what? We're going on vacation? And
I'm okay, okay. Yeah.
it just honestly gave me that chance to release all my
Mhm.
fearful thoughts or my thoughts of I will never have a child. Like that's after our
Mhm.
first failed, that was the first thing that came to my mind was, you know what? I will never have a child. And I was super negative, and that's very
Mhm.
normal to be
Mhm.
negative. And like I already said, like flush the 10,000, 12,000, whatever down the toilet. You know, I was
Mhm.
so negative, and he, bless his sweetheart, was so positive. Like he was able to
Mhm.
pick me up when I was down and go, you
Mhm.
know what, sweetheart? Like, no. Like he
Mhm.
noticed my negativity and went, nope, we're going to make this positive.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying
Yeah.
if it fails, go to Hawaii, do whatever. But I mean, you
Mhm.
could have said to me, let's take a drive up the mountains and go for a walk and have a picnic. And I probably would have reacted the
Totally.
exact same way, So it wasn't,
Mhm.
you don't
Yeah.
have to think about, the money. Like he just legit
Mhm.
saw how down I was and how sad I was. And the fact that he
Mhm.
noticed that, sorry, but the fact that he noticed that
Oh.
and was just like, you know what, sweetheart, I'm going to change this. And like I said, it didn't have to be
Yeah.
Hawaii. He literally could have said,
Yeah.
let's take a drive and have a picnic. And I probably would have just jumped up as
Mhm.
quick and sweet and excited as could be.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that
Yeah.
he
That's really
legit
cute.
recognized my sorrow, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
realized like, okay, this isn't about me, even
Mhm.
though as a couple we're trying to have a child together. He kind of, I think,
Mhm.
realized this is about my sweet dear wife that is having a struggle, and I need and I
Mhm.
want to help her. And that's what it
Yeah.
was. That he
Yeah.
legit was just like, nope, I'm gonna fix this. I don't know how, but and his
Mhm.
first thought was get her to a beach now. Like he knows me very well.
Honestly, though, I think it's great advice, though. Like, you need a break sometimes.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
it just like I said, if monetarily you can't do that, if something fails or whatever, like just listen to your heart and realize what your spouse needs and vice versa. Like
Mhm.
he could have
Mhm.
reacted. I could have been fine and he could have reacted horribly and been super sad. And
Mhm.
I would have had to step up and be like, you know what, let's go, hit golf
Mhm.
balls because he loves golf. Like anything, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, just
Yeah.
realizing your true passions going through this
Mhm.
process. Like,
Mhm.
don't forget about that. Don't like as you're
Yeah.
going through this horrible, stressful, wonderful, all of the above thing, realize why you
Mhm.
actually are together. Like, don't ever
Yeah.
forget why you're a couple and why you're trying to have a
Mhm.
child together. That
Mhm.
there's my advice. There you
Yeah.
go.
That's beautiful. I love it, Jen. Oh my
Aw,
gosh, you've just been
that's so
so incredible. And I just appreciate
yeah,
you being so vulnerable and open and sharing your story. Is there
absolutely.
anything else you'd like to share or anything else you can think of?
Honestly, Kelsey, you've been so wonderful at hosting me, and
Oh
I
my
feel like I've
gosh.
said everything, anything on my heart and my mind, and you've
Oh,
been so
well,
wonderful. I love that you've put this podcast out there for us women that struggled with this and are struggling with it. And
you're so
I think
sweet.
all these women out there are blessed to know you. I'm blessed to know you. We're
Oh,
all blessed to have your podcast, and together we'll all change the world.
thanks,
We'll all get
Jen.
together. No, absolutely. Like you're so
You're
wonderful.
so
You
sweet. And
guys,
I hope
Kelsey's
that we
wonderful.
can do
The
You're
best
so
ever.
sweet. Thank you so much. You're
No,
so good to me.
absolutely, of course. Like, is there
Can
anything
you all
else?
see why I love her? No, no. I was just going to ask if people want to connect with you, is
Oh,
there a
yeah,
way that they could reach out to you?
absolutely. I would honor it and love it. I'm on Instagram at Jenny Roxy Love. I know it's super weird and whatever, but
I'll make sure to put a link below too
so it's
so people can click on it.
JENNY. No, it's at JENNY Roxy, Roxy, love, Love. Like,
Oh,
I tried to
thank
get
you
Jenny
so
Loves Roxy
much.
available. So there you go. That's why.
It's perfect. It's
It's
perfect.
it's
Oh,
absolutely, please reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to talk to anyone and everyone like that has a question or
oh,
even a concern or a just to reach out and say, hey, I love you, girl. And I love you too. Like,
oh.
I'm just all about, we all just have to stick together. And this is a journey, and
We
an
do, and
adventure.
I'm so grateful. You've always been so amazing at like seeing that bigger picture, and I know it's funny because I'm like, as I ask people to like share their journeys, like I get nervous sometimes because I know it's a vulnerable topic and stuff. And I was so excited because when I messaged Jen, she was like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I would love to!" And she was so excited and just saw the bigger
It took me
picture,
about
and
one
so
second to
she
respond. I was like,
yeah, you were
absolutely,
so
we're doing this.
so cute. So she's an amazing, amazing resource. And as you heard her story, she's been through quite a bit in this realm. And so, Jen, thank you so, so much. You're seriously
That's
the best
all.
ever. I love you.
Love you so much, honey.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us here at the Infertility Club. Don't forget, you got this. For more hope, support, and positivity, watch this next video.